Hi there, this is Kaushik Ranchod from the Ranchod Law Group. Welcome to our weekly immigration show. Today we are going to be talking about something that will help you if you've entered without a visa and you have a family member who is part of the armed forces. So we're going to delve exactly who that family member would be and into the details so you can learn more. So stay tuned to watch this video to see if you qualify, because the great thing is that it doesn't require a waiver and it's a faster option than a lot of other options. So already we have talked about options that could help you if you have, for instance, a spouse who's a US citizen or a parent who's a US citizen or lawful permanent resident. The spouse can be a lawful permanent resident as well for the I-601A waiver, and you can apply for that waiver in the United States. So if you haven't already, check out those videos. There's the I-601 waiver if you want to apply for the waiver outside the United States or your qualifying relative is outside of the United States. Then there's also 245I that you might be eligible. There is also the U visa if you were the victim of a violent crime. So we've talked a lot about different options that could help you. But what I want to talk to you now is something that you may not be aware of, and it's called parole in place. So you might be asking, what is parole in place? Well, parole in place was created to acknowledge the important sacrifices that armed service members, veterans have made to the country, and for their family members to get a deferred action, if you will, to be able to be a parolee and eventually even be able to get a green card if they qualify. So it's something that is really, really amazing because it allows you to get a green card in the United States. And unlike the waiver where the last step requires you to apply for it outside of the United States, that process is where you have an immigrant visa interview, and that last step requires you to go to the interview outside the United States. A lot of people don't like that, even though typically it's not an issue, but it still makes people nervous. So this option may be a better option for you if that makes you a little bit nervous. Let's look at who qualifies: the spouse, child, or parent of someone who is an active member of armed forces, or who is previously in the armed forces, or in the select reserve of the ready reserve, could qualify. So that's the basic step. First of all, do you have a family member in that situation? So for instance, we typically get cases in this situation. We've had cases approved where child of a parent who entered without a visa becomes a member of the armed forces and then applies for parole in place based off of that. And then we, if they're eligible, go on to apply for the green card and they can get a green card. But even if we don't go on to actually apply for a green card, it's still a form of deferred action. You can still apply for work authorization as well. So I think that's amazing. And if you haven't already, smash the like button, subscribe so you can continue to get more updates. So the question is, how do you benefit from parole in place? Well, I already alluded to it. You get work authorization, you get to live and work in the United States, and it's a form of deferred action. So similar to DACA, it gives you a form of protection. And it also allows you to get a green card, which is the most amazing part of this whole thing. It's a pathway also to get a green card, so you have lawful permanent residency in the United States. The next question we often get is, well, how do I apply? This sounds amazing. The first step is preparing the parole in place application before you actually file for the green card. For that, you need to have 2 identical passport photos. You need to show the relationship between the armed service member and yourself who's applying. So that often can be done through a birth certificate. That could be done through a marriage certificate. You need to show evidence of the fact of the military service for the individual petitioner. So one way that we have shown that is by providing a photocopy of the military service identification card. Now, what's important to note is that this is a discretionary application. What that means is that you have to prove that you are deserving of getting the application. So not only that additional documentation, but also what we like to do is have educational accomplishments, letters of reference, evidence of community service, professional accomplishments, all of this basically bolstering why you are deserving of getting this parole in place application. Now, also what's important to note is where I've seen pitfalls or issues arise where it's harder to get an approval or they may not even approve the cases if boot camp is not completed. In that situation, then that is a negative equitable factor into getting the case approved. Okay, so you get the parole in place approved, then what? Well, first of all, don't forget to celebrate. So jump up and down and say woohoo! Because that is the first thing that you need to do. You know, I think so often in life we forget to celebrate our wins and acknowledge everything that we've come and gone through, especially you who has, you know, possibly been living here without a visa, and now this is such a big transformation. So I want to make sure you celebrate. So then you can move on to the green card process. So I'm going to give you an example here of where a U.S. citizen child is filing for a parent. So in that situation, you can file what's called an adjustment of status. What does that mean? Well, an adjustment of status is applying for a green card in the United States as opposed to something called an immigrant visa where you're applying for the green card outside of the United States. So you apply, you submit that application with USCIS. You have to submit the immigrant petition. You have to submit the green card application. Typically, that's the 45, the affidavit of support, I-864, proof of financial documentation showing that you're going to be able to support the person that you're applying for or have a joint sponsor, evidence of relationship similar to the parole in place application. And in there, on the 45 application, it'll ask a series of questions on that form to determine your admissibility to the United States. So one of the grounds that would have prevented you before from applying for a green card in the United States because you entered without a visa will be overcome by this parole because of the parole in place and that you're a parolee. So you'll fill out that application and submit all of the supporting documents. Then typically within a few months, you'll be scheduled for a biometrics, making sure that you don't have any criminal issues. That's why they run biometrics. If you have a criminal issue, it may still be possible, depends upon what the criminal issue is. So you really want to talk to an immigration lawyer to see if you do qualify. But you may also not want to apply because many criminal issues will make you ineligible to apply. So it's very important that if you have any kind of criminal issue, you discuss that with an immigration attorney before applying. After submitting the biometrics, then it's just a waiting game. Work authorizations are taking a long time right now, anywhere from 5 to 10 months. So you can apply for a work authorization and travel document. It may even be a year. And you know, this is COVID times right now, so it could even be longer than that. Hopefully we're gonna see times pick up, but while you're waiting, you can get the work authorization and travel document. And then at the very end of the process, you're gonna be scheduled for an interview. So that will typically happen within a month before the interview. If you have a spouse that's applying for you, then they're gonna ask you questions to determine whether or not you have a real relationship. How did you meet? What did you do on New Year's? Questions like that. If it's not a spouse application, they're gonna just evaluate the relationship. And if you wanna learn more about some of the questions they ask, check my other video on that. So then after the interview, then they probably will put the application in review, perhaps have another officer look at it, and then if your case is approvable, it will be approved. And then you'll be a green card holder. So that outlines the whole parole in place process. I hope this video serves you. I hope it just gave you another piece of information that could help you on this journey. And I want to thank you for taking the time to watch this video. By watching this video, you're bettering yourself, And by bettering yourself, you're bettering your family. And by bettering your family, you're bettering the world. Thank you, and bye for now.